Hello, beautiful mamas. There's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. And I really think every mother and every grandmother, every auntie needs to hear about this. It's not a parenting tip or not even a life hack, but it's one of the oldest pieces of wisdom in the world. And yet somehow in all of our busyness and our rushing around, we've sort of forgotten it. And I really want to bring us back into this way of thinking. And this is what it is. We become like the people we spend time with. And I know that sounds simple and it may sound obvious, but until you start to really think about it like that, you are going to end up probably spending time with people that are influencing you in a way that you don't realize. This is important for us and for our children. So picture this. You're at the park or the playground and your little 4-year-old daughter's playing, and she gravitates towards one of the other children on the playground who you have observed as kind and generous and imaginative, and you're like, oh yay, I'm glad she's wanting to play with her. And then in comes a bully who is not really somebody that you want your child to play with. And if your child does gravitate over towards that child, you most likely will go and interrupt that because you do not want your child to become like that. We know this instinctively. We know that our children will become like the people that they spend time with, whether it's children or adults. But what about you? What about you, dear one? When did you stop and take a look at who you're spending time with? And I've watched this realization dawn on so many mothers over the years. And when it does, they start to say, wow, this, and they want to actually tell me about the phone conversation that they had or the text messaging that was going back and forth. And when they start to realize, wow, this has been having a very negative effect on me. And even if that mother has not really become like that other person outwardly, inwardly, she might be turning around those kinds of negative thoughts, like, maybe she starts to think, oh, well, my husband does that too, or, oh, well, my little boy does that too. And she starts to think in a more negative way. So your friend's complaints or her friend's complaints may become your complaints, or your friend's worries may become your worries. Your friend's way of talking about marriage or about her children, that may also end up becoming a part of the way you talk or the way you think and feel. And so you want to make sure that you're not being influenced negatively. If it is a negative influence, it's happening to you if you're spending time with that person. And I know that, it could be their perspectives, it could be their priorities, it could be their emotions. And if we're really vulnerable and we've been conditioned to spending time with people that are like this, we end up becoming like that. I remember when my first marriage counselor said to me, you left your mother to marry your mother. In the latter years of my mother's life, I loved her dearly and we became very, very good friends. But there had been tremendous challenges when I was a child and a teenager and even a young adult up through maybe until I was about 50, 45, 50, something like that. And I realized that a lot of my thinking was very much like hers. And when I got to that point that I realized I wanted to change it, I needed to change it, I will change it, things started happening and changing in my life in a way that I never would have imagined. But here's the beautiful flip side of things. When you're intentional about surrounding yourself with people who embody what you want to become, more peaceful, more grateful, more present, more humorous. You don't have to work so hard to be those things because it starts to happen. They just rub off on you. You just become them. I know a young mother who never speaks critically, not of her children, not of her grandchildren. She doesn't have grandchildren. About her husband. She may talk about the challenges that some of her children have, but with such respect for who they are. And when other mothers spend time with her or with grandmothers spend time, they come home and they find themselves speaking differently to their children and to themselves. And her way of seeing her children as whole people worthy of dignity, even in their difficult moments, it just becomes more natural to everyone around her. And I know another mother who finds joy in the smallest things that her children do. And even in the smallest things that she does, like having a cup of coffee while the baby naps, or the way the afternoon light hits her kitchen counter, a sweet text from her husband. When you're with her, you start noticing these small beauties. But you end up becoming beautiful too because you're noticing beauty. Her gratitude becomes contagious. And this is what the ancient writers meant when they talked about the company we keep shaping our character. And they understood something that we've forgotten in our modern world. We are not independent beings who remain unchanged by our relationships. And this applies really, especially to social media, because there is so much anger and so much hatred going on social media. And if we're spending time even just reading that and scrolling on that, it is becoming a part of who you are. So when you're giving so much of yourself, and when your defenses are down, and when you start to question whether you're doing anything right, you're particularly open to this kind of influence. So now this doesn't mean you can abandon the people that are struggling. I don't really mean that at all. Love often requires that we walk alongside someone in their difficult season. I've done that with my dear friend who has had a tremendous amount of depression. But what I've found is I can't spend a daily or have a daily conversation with her. It becomes too negative for me and it just pulls me down. We always go down to the lowest common denominator. So think about that. And it may be a mother-in-law who pulls you down. It may be a father-in-law who lifts you up. But be very wary of who you're spending time with. Be very wary of the social media content that you're consuming. Make it all about beauty and truth and goodness. Make sure that these relationships, these influences are because you're listening to them and paying attention to them because that's the kind of person you want to become. That you want to be a woman of peace, a woman of joy, a woman of goodness, a woman who brings joy and peace and goodness to the people that you're around. That you want to love your husband and not find fault with him. I told a friend the other day, a young mother who was having some struggles with her husband. And I said, well, I think you have two choices here. You can either stay married to him and continue to complain about him. I guess you have three choices. Or you can leave him, or you can decide that you are going to change and you are going to start to focus on the things that are good about him. That's true about any person you spend time with, and even your children. There are difficult children in our families, children who push all your buttons. It's very easy when you've got a child like that to just start to think negatively about that child, to wish that your child was more like the sibling or more like your friend's child. But that doesn't help the child. It raised a child who is much more difficult than the other children. I know what that's like. I've had some stepsons too, and one of which was much more difficult than the other. But the thing is that we need to focus on what is good and true and right. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, I think the most important thing for us to do is we need to be spending time not only with other people that we cherish the way that they live out their lives, but we want to spend and must spend time in the Word of God, where we're getting that encouragement from the living and the active Word. How you show up in a relationship, that's really important too. Your friends are being influenced by you and also by social media. You may have a friend who it would be very comfortable and natural for you to say, hey, listen, I've noticed that since you've started spending this much time on Facebook, that you now are much more negative or angry or starting to feel more depressed. Don't be afraid to have that type of real, open, vulnerable conversation with another person, and especially if it's a friendship that you want to preserve. I want to encourage you again to take a look at the people that you're friends with. Recognize that you can choose your friends. Starting today, you can decide, am I going to spend a lot of time with this person going forward? Or am I going to sort of go back a little bit and not spend as much time with this person, but I'm going to choose this person over here to spend more time with? Create your own meetup. And you can actually say, hey, listen, I am looking for positive people. I'm looking for people who want to seek out truth, goodness, and beauty, and let that become your world. Even the Apostle Paul, he warned us about, corrupt characters and being very careful about who we spend time with. The importance of choosing your companions. You must do it carefully. Understand we are shaped by our proximity. That influence flows in relationships whether we're conscious of it or not. And that the people we choose to be near will determine in large part who we become. So I want to ask you, dear mother, dear grandmother, who are you becoming? And who are you becoming through the people that are around you? Are they making you more of who you want to be as a mother, as a wife, and as a woman, or less? And when you spend time with your closest friends, do you come home more grateful for your life or less? Are you more patient with your husband or your children? Are you more trusting of God or more anxious? Are you more convinced of your husband's good qualities or more focused on his flaws? And here's the deeper question. What kind of person are you being for others? When someone spends time with you, do they become more peaceful? Do they become more grateful? Do they become more hopeful? Do they leave your presence feeling better about themselves and better about their lives and their families? The most beautiful thing about this truth is that it means you, yes, you, have more power than you think. You can't control everything about motherhood or even about your children or your husband. You can't control your children's choices or your husband's moods. You can't control all the circumstances you find yourself in. But you know what? You can choose who shapes you. You can choose to be the kind of person others become more beautiful by being around. You can seek out the women who will call you higher, who will remind you of what's true, who will help you see your life and your family through the lens of gratitude rather than comparison. We become like the people we spend time with. So let's choose those friends very carefully.